Right on. Well, we are live on YouTube and Twitch as well. So take it away, my man.
Awesome, awesome. Welcome to late night. Hopefully you got to sleep and you're up and bright, or the kids are asleep, because we're going to be talking a lot of shit today. Okay, T Wells, I wish 2 weeks ago I took an IQ test, so then I would take it again today and I would have lost like 20 points for sure.
Why is this?
I infiltrated Twitter. I figured, hey, I have enough to do. Let me access Twitter because there's a lot of stuff going on in the space, right? So I decided to jump in a whole bunch of Twitter spaces. And to some people's defense, I will give them some. There's some people actually trying to do some good stuff out there, no question. But 90% of the spaces are just junk. Like, people shouldn't be talking, okay? Just because you have a megaphone doesn't mean you should be.
Hey, what do you think, man? So what are some of the things you run into lately?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's so many shills. I mean, it's just like people. Web3 is hot right now, so everybody wants to make a space or make some noise, and like some people have genuine projects, but people raise their hands and it's like, okay, this is a great space and all, but let me tell you about my project and what I want to do. And then like 5-10 minutes later, they show their project that means absolutely nothing, and then the host is like, I love that. That sounds great. That sounds great. And then pretty much preaching to the choir of like, oh, Web3 is the greatest. It's the greatest. This is my project. And, it just rinse and repeat over and over and over again for like hours upon hours. I'm like, oh my God. It was cool in the first day. It's like, oh, it's fun and exciting. People are talking about Web3 and everything, but it's just like the same thing over and over and over again. The biggest thing is a lot of people are celebrating their gambles. Like, they bought this one random NFT and then they made a lot of money and like, congrats. But it's like, it's the one out of, 10 NFTs that they forgot to mention that failed, so like people are settling. Like if my friend won in Vegas, he won $1,000 in Vegas, like, hey, congrats. But he's not telling me that he lost like a couple thousand, like 2 days before or something.
Of course. No, and this is like, I feel like the shtick for most like traders. They're gonna tell you all about their wins, but you gotta always wonder about the rest.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of people. Like, it's just a lot of people that have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, they're referencing their tech team. I'm like, man, it's your dev that you picked up from Fiverr or Craigslist. Your tech team's working on it. Like, shut up. It's just like people don't know what they're talking about. Like, when you kind of have an idea of what's going on in the space, and then you hear other people talk that really don't know what they're saying and just kind of rinsing and repeating, is like, they're kind of full of shit in a sense. And it's kind of unfortunate because a lot of people coming into Twitter are looking for information and really trying to learn some stuff. And there are some gems, but right now it's kind of like you got to go through a whole bunch of junk to get to like the real nitty gritty stuff. And that's the unfortunate part. And then everybody tells you, oh, do your own research, do your own research. They're covering the back, but they never tell you how to do your own research. And that's kind of the problem. I'll tell you this, this is advice. If the Twitter space for the NFT project just showed up like this month, it's probably a scam. If the founders all been created in March 2022 and their Twitter just got created, it's probably a scam.
Yeah, man, I think that it'd be interesting to see, if someone were to collect the data and say, well, all of the NFT projects, or maybe just top by sales or whatnot last year, what percentage of those projects that were riding the wave have like abandoned the roadmap at this point in time. I don't know, I'd be curious.
Well, people
you
talk
tweeted
about
about
utility.
Makerverse, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many cool looking projects, and that's fine if you want to make a project and you want to bootstrap. That's totally cool with me. Like, I mean, more power to you if that's how you want to bootstrap. Like, that's awesome. The thing that gets me or that irks me is the people that hide behind good causes. Is, oh, we're including women in Web3 and we're going to donate, so and so this much to this nonprofit group or anything. And then I'll get on the space like, well, how much are you actually donating? Oh, we're going to donate 5% of all our proceeds. I mean, waiters make 18%, like, it's like, what are you doing with the rest of that money? So it's like, okay, now you're basically waving this flag of you're doing all this good, but you're keeping 95% of the proceeds for what? Like, what are you going to do with it? Oh, we're going to create utility. It's like, well, what's the utility? We're going to have real life, meetups. It's like, all right, so anybody that's buying from China or Afghanistan can't use that utility. It's like, there's a lot of full of shit, kind of, things that they're promising that don't work at all. I mean, at least give me a POAP on top of it.
Please, sir, POAP, sir.
no, pull-ups. I don't understand. I don't even collect those things anymore. They're too crazy for me. I mean, I just call them ghetto NFTs now. It's like we want to give you something, but we don't want to spend the mint cost. So here you
You
go.
know, man, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, yeah, given the conversations we've had and your awesome dev skills, I was thinking, I mean, even what we did for trivia, like having, sort of bespoke, more custom NFTs, um, seems a lot more meaningful than sort of this thing that is obviously prone to all kinds of spam for unknown reasons. I mean, not to get me wrong. I mean, some of the artwork is really cool. Um, but yeah, it's definitely obnoxious sometimes to have all those the farmers.
Yeah, yeah. For anybody listening in the audience, there's no pull-ups today, just in case. You can go.
Straight up.
Just saying. But yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy space, like the way that things have changed in the last, few weeks. I think somebody did leave, but anyways, it's such a weird environment. Oh, okay,
Let
you
me
got
get my
time. No pull out. I'm out. But it's such a weird place. It's like, a lot of people are, I guess starstruck or anything. So like people really band around famous people promoting NFTs. Like if they're just like if someone knows their name, all of a sudden people band around them. I see Snoop being mentioned a lot and a few other actors. I'm like, all right. I mean, that is cool. Like they're embracing Web3 and they're doing it, but it's like, well, I think you're embracing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, they're trying to run a business and they're trying to make money off you. And if you're trying to ride the coattails to success with them, I guess. But right now, all I see people are doing is just make rich people richer. And I think that's kind of like what we're trying to conquer in Web3 versus Web2 because they're doing well in Web2, So why are you making them richer in Web3 and not you?
Yeah, man. I wonder. It's like, so even if we just take the NFT phenomenon and talk about like the art component of it, and people are wanting to make analogies. I mean, you sort of mentioned Snoop, and that came to mind. This idea of there's in like the legacy world of art, you have artists, and then you have benefactors or like collectors that enable their career more or less to take off. And I sense that there's a desire to sort of simulate or emulate this in the NFT space. Is that something that you think is real or is like more imagined, in a sense?
No, no, no. Like there's definitely opportunities for artists. I just think, honestly, people got really greedy. And I think people lost focus. Like you make a nice piece of art, I don't want to buy it for one ETH. It's not. I mean, to me, it's not worth $3,000, unfortunately. But we've lost contact of like dollar value versus tokens. It's like
Sure.
I think it's like the Dave and Buster's kind of thing, where like if you have to put in $1 to play the game, you wouldn't do it. But if it costs 20 points, then you've lost connection of that dollar value to the point value in a sense. So I mean, we've separated like how much we're actually spending on stuff. So I think people just got greedy. Like these drops, for 10,000 drops is like, okay, point zero, 3 ETH is like, all right, that doesn't sound a lot. But when you realize, hey, that's like a couple $100, I'm paying a couple $100 for like a JPEG that may or may not succeed. And honestly, most people really don't care about the art. They care about being able to flip it in a sense or being part of a community. So you're kind of buying into this, whatever's being promised to you. But there are artists that are really taking off and making a good income off of it, and that are legit. The problem is it's just being overflowed with or just flooded with all these bad projects and scams and everything. And it's like and I really hate to say it, but it's like marketers are just killing it. Like it's the Web2 marketing coming into the Web3 world, and they're using the same tactics, and people are falling for it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. There were some really illuminating conversations in ETH Denver, on NFTs specifically. Like the most meaningful stuff that I heard, of course, had very small audience.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it was clear to me that there's definitely like an emerging group of like there's definitely relationships being forged between creators and collectors, which excited me a bit. But like, I think that's, as you're saying, is sort of overwhelmed by the noise at times.
Well, here's we are. Like this is what the space is like right now. Okay, I can have a great project and make it open source and it's a public good, and then I can maybe get a Gitcoin grant and maybe get some money funded to me, and then I'll get $5,000 or maybe $10,000, or I can do an NFT drop and then make 1 million.
Right.
And that's just the truth of where it is. People are in the hype. They don't really care about decentralization. They don't really care about anything else other than hoping to turn that 0.02 ETH into 1 ETH, and hoping like the floor is like it goes up, and they're banking on me promoting it enough to make that value go up in a sense. And that seems to be the primary focus of what is the average NFT buyer in a sense. I don't know too many people like really, I would say, holding on to it for the art. I would say they're holding on to it because of what may come in the future, by holding this.
Sure.
So I mean, it's a tough situation. Like again, there's a whole culture thing that I don't understand that's being brought into it. I mean, I've seen a quote post like, NFTs brought tofu to the space. There's a lot more sensitive people now, and all kinds of interesting things. People complaining about the environment. But it's hard for them to. I'm like, the same people complaining about the environment are the same people that put Christmas lights up, in the December. So it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, man. Do you have any sense of music NFTs? Have you looked into that space at all?
Very, very little, and there's definitely, there's definitely going to be something there, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be the way I would like to envision it. In a sense, like music NFTs is like, all right, well, with JPEGs and stuff like that, it's instant gratification. You click it, you look at it, it's done. Okay, boom, you have it, you own it. With music NFTs, you can literally right click save. I don't have to do any visual to it. Like most people just listen to it Bluetooth. There's no like visual connection to that, and it also takes like 3 or 4 minutes to really enjoy. So there's kind of a gap of like art appreciation in a sense, where you see something and it's instant gratification, and then you have to put a little commitment to like music NFTs, listen to the intro or listen to anything, and then you get the full appreciation of that NFT in a sense. I mean, in the ideal world of how I would do NFTs, if I were to build music NFTs, is okay. Oh, 1 second. I think my gardener is coming right here. He's really late today. 1 second, as he comes in with his lawnmower. But
Yeah.
hopefully you can hear me over it. But like the way I would do NFTs is like, look, we got rid of the middleman, right? I'm trying to support this artist. Let's say T Wells is dropping his new album, right? And he's selling, his album. He's selling it for, let's say, 200 ETH. Everybody buying a piece of that, right? So now we're all investors in this album, and if this album takes off, we all make money. If it's played on the radio, if someone uses it in a movie, we all get paid. We bootstrapped your career. We bootstrapped this album. You didn't have to go with the label. We did it. We did the promotions. We're spreading it. We have our NFT. We're creating our culture, and now we should all be getting benefit out of that. And that's, I think, how music NFT should go. Because if that's the Web3 space, what's the point of buying an NFT? You make all the money. I have access to the song, and then you blow up, and then what? Like, what does that get me? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's some interesting intersection of like IP with some of this stuff, right? And I certainly am far from legal expert to like understand how that will either is currently governed or is likely to shake out. But yeah, the sort of profit sharing arrangement with token holders or with people who have been part of the project or by minting the NFTs to support artists' work is really interesting. I have to just get your thoughts on this one project. I'm super biased because like I love the artist that that is behind some of the audio sampling. But there's a project called Synthopia, and basically, so there is an artist named Grammatik, Gramatik, and Grammatik is actually a group, but the main fella is his music was basically sampled to create generative like music. So each NFT represents it's sort of an adaptation of like the generative art primitive to music. and using certain tracks that he had created specifically for this purpose to like use machine learning to generate these interesting, one of a kind, synthesis of his work. Anyways, it seemed innovative to me. I don't know all the technicals on the back end, but I bought it because I think it was cool, and because holding the NFT gets you into all of his future shows. So as a fan, it was sort of like a no-brainer. But there's a lot of creativity here, I guess. I'm just interested in how this all moves past JPEGs, you know.
Well, I mean, first of all, this sounds like drug music right off the top.
Straight up,
But
brother.
yeah,
It's
but
awesome.
there's real utility. You necessarily didn't buy the NFT for the music. Well, I mean, you could think of it two ways. You bought a lifetime pass for this artist's events if it makes sense for you to visit in a sense. Like if you lived in like, you know, an island, obviously the utility wouldn't be there. But then you're just buying it for the music. So
Right.
you're getting two birds with one stone. Like you're getting access to the music, and then you're getting access to this artist if it's convenient for you to go, in a sense.
Yeah, exactly, man. And the synth NFTs are definitely like I don't sit down and like listen to it on my radio. You know, it's more of an artifact of like this specific person's work. And exactly, it's like I feel sort of back to your point. It's like what I got excited about with Synthopia is that they're actually going to be, I think, dropping essentially a token for holders of the NFT that's going to give certain governance rights. So again, my point is, I guess if you're really like interested in a specific artist, and there is this intersection between supporting their work and like having some governance rights over the usage of certain aspects of their creations, like I tend to get excited about that, but at the same time I have to like temper that with my Web3 like glasses, like the opposite of rose, whatever the opposite of rose-colored glasses are.
Yeah, I mean, like again, let's say Grammatic blows up. Wouldn't being an early supporter benefit you then? Wouldn't that be the better story of like, okay, this guy blows up, he goes on tour, you know, becomes a billionaire in music. I said, yeah, I was one of the first people to support his NFTs. I was one of his first supporters. In a Web3 world, shouldn't that benefit you somehow, other than, you know, having to go out your way to see him in a sense? Because you've kind of paid for his food, you've kind of paid for his, you know, gear, you bootstrapped him in a sense.
Yeah.
So like, isn't there some kind of like payback other than, yeah, you can come see me if you want, you know, versus I made, you know, we do a governance vote. Should we let this Sony Music use our song in the movies, and we governance vote yes or no, you know, versus that I'll get paid this. So I mean, there's so many ways to go, and lawyers have zero idea what to do because this is an entirely new space. So like, there's going to be a lot of, you know, ifs, ands, or buts, and I can tell you, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about because it's, you know, you got old people lawyers that don't know how to like use a remote control for Dish Network, and they're making up laws for stuff that they don't understand. So it's going to be a generational gap, you know. I mean, we're still using the Howey system for SEC, and that's like what, an early 1900s law. I mean, we stopped using horses and carriages a long time ago, you know.
Yeah, amen to that, man. Yeah, yeah.
So it's not about thinking of what it was, and that's kind of the problem that we have right now. And this is what I'm going to get to in just a little bit. Is we're stuck in a certain mind frame of what is, not what could be. You know, so it's like, okay, well, according to the law and all this, it's like, oh, well, I have to follow these rules. As well, Web3 was meant to break the rules or like change the direction because we're tired of the same shit over and over again. So it's like, all right, I mean, this sucks. You know, rich people are always rich, and inflation sucks. But they keep raising prices, but I don't get a raise. So then, how am I supposed to survive? You know, people sometimes forget what Bitcoin was created for from 2008 and like the big crash, and everybody got fucked except for the people in charge, and nobody went to jail. Nobody did anything like that, did bad, that should have gone in trouble. All just paid off and did just fine. They're all doing just fine, and everybody else was still recovering. Hence, the whole reason Bitcoin even existed. And I feel like we're going backwards in that directions, which, you know, brings me back to like NFT LA. You know, it's currently happening in my neighborhood, and you know, honestly, I don't have much interest for it because I was like, oh, NFT LA, there's going to be a convention coming around in this area, and you know, let me check it out. I mean, first of all, the tickets were $400. I'm like, what the fuck?
God.
Okay, so let me put a perspective to that, because East Denver definitely cost me way more than that, you know, hotel, flight, and all that. So I wouldn't say it was a money thing, but it was what I was getting at East Denver. That itself was free, and there were some issues. You know, it was overcrowded, obviously, because of that. but I felt like I was going to get a better experience with that, like learning stuff, doing a couple things, meeting some real life people was socially, which you can do at different places. But I felt I was going to get more back for what I spent than what I get at NFTLA. Because I looked at the speaker list and it's influencers, Mark Cuban, Aoki. Like, what if Mark Cuban was teaching a class how to run a business and how to own a basketball system? I'd be all over it. Okay, cool. But Mark Cuban's talking about NFTs. I'm like, what is he going to tell me? He's like, NFTs are the future. This is my new project. Like, what the fuck are you going to tell me, Mark Cuban, that I don't already know?
Hell yeah, I hear that.
So it's like when the whole thing about this whole NFT thing with NFTLA is like when COVID went out and they started interviewing celebrities and shit. Like what do I care what fucking Beyonce thinks about COVID and shit? It's fucking put me on the phone with a doctor or something. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
So I feel like NFT is a lot of that. Like there's a lot of hype. Obviously, it's LA, Hollywood, or whatever. So everybody wants a flash, but $400 a ticket is not very inclusive for something that's supposed to be all inclusive for Web3. And I think we've kind of lost our focus on that. It's like, well, then how does a guy struggling get into this kind of stuff? Like how do you become all inclusive when you're doing a huge price tag for one that we're suffering from inflation? I understand everybody's got to eat and they got to pay for stuff, but I just feel like it's a flex fest in a sense.
It's funny. I was reading this article about South by Southwest, and I lived in Austin for almost a decade, and got a sense for what that's all about. But it was clearly, I don't know if it's like say like a normie, but someone who is not into NFTs to begin with. Their experience at South by was just this sort of overwhelming NFT-ness, but their perception. And I didn't get the sense in sort of reading the reviews that this is someone who is, sort of one of these like super crypto haters. It was just a genuine bewilderment, like a lack of understanding of where the tangible sort of value was in the experience of, sort of the NFT hype around South by. And when I'm looking at the NFT LA website, I sort of get the same, the same vibe given what you're saying.
Well, it's a culture, and this is something that I really have a struggle understanding because, I don't want to say I'm the OG, cryptocurrency guys. Oh, I've been in crypto for 2016, blah, blah, blah. There's a new generation, and new money came in with this bull run. And it's the generation that values sneakers, style, and likes to flex, who shoes are shoes to me, but I don't see myself paying $300 for some Jordans and then not using them. But there's a culture for that, and there's a culture for people that like Supreme or whatever that brand is. God, I can't even think of it. That Walmart brand that all of a sudden became really expensive. Champion, there we go. So it's like, well, who decided Champion was cool all of a sudden? I don't know, like why, but it just did. And so there's a whole culture thing behind NFTs, and I feel like it's a lot easier to understand than DeFi. And I could buy this picture of this monkey, and then all of a sudden it could be worth like a whole lot more, and it becomes part of some kind of Web3 culture. I get that, but it doesn't mean that it's the right way. And people kind of lost focus of what crypto is and like what it could be. They're just kind of rinse repeating Web2 again. They're just basically, I think, in a sense, not realizing that they're selling out in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So, like my thing. Go ahead.
So you are you planning to hit up the after parties here at NFT LA, if not the actual event?
There's one event tomorrow that I'm going to go meet some real life people that I just kind of been bullshitting on Twitter, here and there, like for my whole 2 week span of what's going on in Twitter. I've met some people, and some people are legit. And I figure, excuse me, I'd go meet them and everything and see what it is. But honestly, on Twitter, like my productivity like dropped 90% overall of what I can get done when I'm not on it versus when I'm on it. So it's like you spend time on Twitter, like the people that make the most noise are the least productive, unfortunately, at least in my experience. There's a whole bunch of like how to be a developer, how to be a coder, and thread of like 20 pages of threads and everything. And they're constantly throwing on there's like, how can, like, it seems like more people are spending time of how to be successful than actually being successful in a sense.
It's funny, man. I often wonder though, when I'm just sort of whatever trucking on a variety of things, like how certain people have the time to actually tweet as much as they do. I mean, I enjoy reading and doing that to a certain extent, but it sometimes is amazing to me. Um, because it does take
Yeah,
time, to do those threads and all the rest.
it is a skill for sure, but it doesn't justify what people are selling. And unfortunately, that's what it is. They're selling the image and they're selling, because sometimes I'll DM people, hey, what are you building? It's like, oh, I just tweet, man. That's it. That's what I do. I'm a marketer. I just tell people. And like, they claim they're building stuff or they claim they're part of stuff, but they haven't actually built shit other than like just tweeting it. So I was like, I guess you're building a brand, but I see it equivalent to like people that celebrate a win in the Super Bowl. Like if they were a fan on the stage and they were acting like they threw the winning touchdown or something. It was like, you just sat on the stage, you didn't throw the ball, you didn't do all the work, you're just celebrating, So I was like, that's how I see marketers in a sense. Like, I built this thing. I was like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, man, I just gotta say, for people if they're folks sitting on YouTube or Twitch here, I did manage to go over the tickets, and yeah, if you're interested in going to this NFTLA, the really the general admission is now $1,000. So enjoy.
Yeah,
If you want to be
it's
VIP,
great.
it's 5K. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think that's a filter to see who's willing to drop that much money and who they're going to sell to next. Like, I mean, I'm assuming for 5K, you're going to get the alpha on the next drop. So maybe it's an investment. Like, we're going to use our star power to promote this new product, and you're going to get on the whitelist or anything or whatever. That's what I'm assuming, because it's a filter. Like, well, who has $400 to drop in a convention to come talk to me? So I'm like, I guess, but it still doesn't solve the problem of what builders are trying to solve, and that, like, the Web 2 versus Web 3 mentality. And I think Web 2 is really kicking Web 3's ass right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, what do you think about that, man? In what ways would you say?
Oh man, I mean, just the way people are coming in, especially the marketing, and a lot of the people are like doing a lot of education. They're bringing the Web 2 mentality to Web 3. Right? Oh, come sign up for our education. Sign up with your username and password and your email account versus sign up with your wallet. Now you're doxing yourself, or you're tying connection to your username and password to a wallet. And then we don't know where that data is being stored. It could be being stored on some guy's computer. It could be stored on AWS. And if that gets hacked, I highly doubt you're spending as much money as Coinbase and securing that data. So you got a lot of fly-by-night companies that are kind of doing this and that, making websites and apps that may or may not hold your information safely. And then that's just one aspect. Then you got the VC-funded implants that are just coming in, hey, come learn our program or anything like that, contribute to our DAO, but we ain't going to pay you. So it becomes a zero-sum game, So like, this is one thing that I've been seeing is like a lot of targeted demographic like audiences. We need more women in Web3. We need more Latinos in Web3. We need more Blacks in Web3. It's like, okay, that's cool. I get it. I mean, I never really saw that as a problem, but I can't speak like that, because I figure One Hive has a lot of Latin people, and I wouldn't say it has a lot of women, but I've heard women voices, but most people have been a Discord name to me. Like, I've never knew their identity. They were kind of just like anonymous in a sense. And now with this new culture is kind of like a look at me, this is me kind of profile. So it's kind of a weird, switch. And so everybody was anon and had good OPSEC. I mean, my OPSEC sucks. Everybody knows who I am, but I'm just saying in general, like, I never really cared or even considered it. But now that they're bringing in this more space, it's like, well, now what's your purpose? Are you really trying to onboard people? And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have good intentions, but it's like, okay, well, we need these things done, and then people do it, and then you get thanks. Well, it's like, well, what's different than Web 2? Then, what's different than Facebook creating a platform, then you put contact and then they get paid? They needed this job done. You did it, and you got nothing in return. And then the platform gets the promotion. So it's that kind of mentality of like, if you contribute, you should get paid. So if you're trying to bring in these people, you're trying to bring in more women in Web3, well, give them some jobs, give them something of equal pay, like, don't just bring them in so they can spend money or learn to buy an NFT or anything. You got to bring in new people and then show them the way to help contribute and then get paid and be a part of the platform, like be a part of the owner. Like, if you win, we win. That's the essence of Web3, and Web2 is, you contribute to me, I take all the profit, and then you may or may not get something in return.
Right. Yeah. This sort of general extraction approach. And I think that, as you're saying, it's a lot of people wanting to take advantage of, or the opportunity to be involved, and should just be aware that they're potentially being targeted in some ways, depending on obviously their own research into the projects that are trying to recruit them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like again, I've been joining a lot of Latino groups because one, I'm brown. In case you didn't notice, T Wells, just in case. But they're targeting Latinos. Are like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine and all, but now you're targeting my mom. Now you're targeting my aunt. Now you're targeting my cousin, my niece. So now I've got to get more involved to see, what are you guys preaching? What are you guys doing? Like, are you onboarding people to do what? Like, what specifically is there an advantage versus onboarding just people to Web3 in a sense? What is it that is unique or specific? Other than culture, like what is the end goal to onboard more women? I've jumped into a women's spaces, and T Wells, in case you didn't notice, I'm not a woman. I snuck in as a non, but it's a lot of women empowerment, and I get it, but it's like a lot of shilling too. It's like they just want women money, and then I keep seeing, like, I keep comparing it to like Walmart is saying, for Pride Month, and then covering their whole, store in rainbows for a month. It's like they don't really care about gay people or whatever, LGBT, whatever acronym. They just want money. You know what I mean? They just want to target that money, and that seems to be the goal. So like if you're targeting a certain demographic and you're not giving them positions of power, you just want the money. And that's kind of why I've been involved, to see, okay, these groups that are pulling in this demographic, what is your purpose? And if it's not, I'm calling you out. And that's been my goal in the last 2 weeks.
Hell yeah, man. We need somebody to be policing the the Twitter spaces, particularly the NFT space. I feel like is prone to this type of thing. Is that what you're finding?
Oh
More,
yeah, yeah. Nobody else is talking about anything else but NFTs, and that's the truth. Like, nobody else is in the space is talking. I mean, that's the hot topic right now. I thought it would burn out, but obviously it's not, because of the success of the apes. And more people want to imitate the apes, and I get that. And more people want the opportunities. Oh, I want to change my life overnight. There are going to be some winners. Like, I see as the apes as Yahoo. There's still going to be another Google that's going to kick its ass. It becomes like, we don't know who it is. We don't know how it'll become, and there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of other places. We don't know. We just have that hack from the Ronin hack. So like $600 million in ETH just got moved out of the space. Who knows what that's going to do to like the entire ecosystem? So we don't know.
yeah, it was 173. Jesus, I saw that here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so all the Axie Infinity, all those players, they cannot leave the ecosystem. So is this hacker? I mean, the hacker was totally crazy. I'm like, I don't even know if this is legit or not. I have no idea. It was funded by Binance, so the initial drop to deposit was from Binance, and then I think 10% was sent to FTX once the hack was done, and then a couple other places. So I was like, all right, are you throwing ETH to your enemies to get them under fire, or are you really that stupid? Because if you hacked 500 to $600 million with ETH, I figure you'd be a little smarter than putting it on a central exchange.
I mean, you'd think so, but then that reminds me of, what was it, like the Colony pipeline hack last year, and these morons obviously deposited onto Coinbase. Like, how else would the feds have, basically
It is absolutely
clawed it
insane.
back? I mean, sometimes you think it's like, yeah, it's wild. People become like, or like this super intelligence in the exploit, but then the exit plan of the bank hack is like wandering down
Yeah,
Main Street.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that hack is so unimpressive either. Literally, it was a server hack to these nodes, and the private keys, I think, were basically unencrypted. So it's just like a notepad with private keys. And he did a 51% attack on it and just withdrew all the ETH. So it's how sloppy some of these bridges are. So it's really scary. Like, what could break this?
Jesus.
But then it goes to the questions like, well, what if this guy went crazy and just bought a shit ton of NFTs? And then all of a sudden, like, all these sellers, just got a shitload of ETH. This guy's sitting on NFTs. Like, what do you do? Like, do you get the money back? Do you give it back? What if you paid overpriced it? Like, who's going to give what back? So like, how does that work? It could have been a lot of damage in the space of what could have happened. And it brings to the thing like, okay, well, if I drop an NFT project, right, and I want to keep the floor high, I can literally buy it from myself for crazy price, and all of a sudden that's the new floor, and I can trick people and saying, "Oh, our new floor is 22 ETH now." All of a sudden, it's so gameable that it's crazy. Like people don't know what to look for.
Right. Right. And what to be afraid of, or what the red flags are.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, I try to speak up, but people run out of time. People tell these crazy stories, and I've heard some really nice stories. Like artists just want to do art. And when you bank on someone that's hoping, like, I see tips. Oh, if it's the original artist, he has a lot of faith. It's like, all right, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I don't know how many artists that are very good business people, T Wells. But mine has been like
Zero.
one out of 1,000.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, this is a really good point. It's like, in fact, not only not, but like prone to being exploited, unfortunately, right? They need advocates, man, or at least people like you're saying that are going to come and sort of educate them to things they got to be careful of.
And education is so crazy too. Like everybody wants to educate, and it's like everybody's reinventing the wheel at the same time, and that's the hard part. Like this is again the Web 2 versus Web 3 mentality. It's like, well, what's the point of being an education platform if you want to centralize it? So then all education goes through you. It's the same problem we have with Web 2 right now. All searches go through Google. Like 90% of all searches are going through Google. All social media is pretty much going through Meta. Anything Instagram, Facebook, like that, they control the flow. Nobody surfs the web anymore. Like Google tells you where to go. So like education is like, once that gets centralized too, then back to Web 2 again. Like they control what you get to see, they get to control what you get to know. Like there's so many things going on in the space that it's like the the metaverse in a sense. It's like, why do you want to control the education? Maybe there should be like, I'm pretty sure there's like 10,000 education DAOs, but it's like, how many MetaMask versions do you need? Like set up MetaMask, hide your seed, don't give out your seed. Your public is your username, your private key is your password. Don't give out your password. It's how many versions of that do you need? Just have one version, then have it in multiple languages, and then boom, check it. It's a hard one to concept, but like everybody wants to control where they go. They want to be that source, and it's kind of like now we're all working in parallel, but we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, people trying to sort of capture that flow of curiosity, I guess. I mean, I think that, yeah, and YouTube is not a great place. I mean, it has a lot of great resources, but there's always the question of reliability. So I guess whoever manages to establish that, currency, legitimacy in people's mind as being the source of the right information, I guess, is going to win that race, it seems. Although, yeah, it's, as you're saying, it's what we're doing right now is a form of education, though, right? So I would hope that it remains not located in one project or the other, in a sense, right? That their education about Web3 and what's possible is something that doesn't become a sole source. Yeah.
The big problem I'm having with education right now, or educators right now, is sometimes it's the blind leading the blind in a sense. I mean, I get it. Number one source is how do I buy an NFT? So I mean, the focus is buying NFTs, but it should not be the onboarding point to it, because that first experience could be a bad experience, and then crypto's a scam in a sense. And I get that people want to go in there and buy an NFT and just not miss out. But it's kind of like, man, it's like going to Vegas and just dropping $100 on the first slot machine you see, and some people are going to win, but more people are going to lose. And that's not really what we want to do. We've kind of again lost focus on what Web3 is about decentralization. Everybody goes to OpenSea for NFTs, even though like there's other alternatives. There's like Looks Rare that actually pays you to like sell and buy on it, and the same fee. So it's literally the same thing, but you get paid tokens on top of it. It's like, why wouldn't you use it? Like what's the difference? And like OpenSea has the market right now. Like I would say like 90% of all transactions. I don't have the data. I'm just making shit up, but I'm assuming that most people work on OpenSea, and they just stopped all Cuban users and Venezuelan users. So it's like now they're following certain protocols that they have to follow for states or anything. So it's like, well, it's defeating the purpose of what decentralization was about. Now you're excluding users because of where they were born. That sucks. And so now I feel like Coinbase is probably going to kill OpenSea, because they're probably going to do it on their own chain that's exitable to the Ethereum, but now you're going to have no fee buying. They don't have to pay the gas fee to mint something
Yeah.
on Coinbase. Yeah. So then all of a sudden everybody's going to go drop OpenSea and they're going to go to Coinbase, and now we have even more centralization. Now you have to have your ID, and the taxes are going to get you. Like, I pay my taxes and shit. That's a horrible thing to like keep account for, but I do. It sucks. There's no good software for that. I had nothing to recommend for it. But Coinbase is going to keep track of everything that you do, and that kind of like defeats the purpose of decentralized web.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, whether it's on the NFT front, whether it's with ETH2 and sort of the staking validator structure there, it's definitely trending in a certain direction, and yeah, it's definitely concerning there. I mean, I gotta believe when you look at projects like here at One Hive and others, there are definitely people trying to sort of build out against this, and I'm sure we're not the only ones having this conversation, but in the minority right now. I feel like whenever I have conversations with friends and family, it's like, look, don't onboard, don't trade, like don't onboard to an exchange, avoid onboarding to some sort of NFT marketplace. And if possible, right, avoid those things, because as you're saying, the majority of people, they just don't benefit. Like, they can be a thrill, and if you consider it like sort of like a casino and you're working with money you can afford to lose, then have fun with that. But the chances that people are going to sort of make out large, is just misguided, and I think it's a fundamental lack of understanding about how liquidity actually works for these sorts of things, particularly NFTs, right? Um, yeah. Talk about illiquid. The floor prices. The floor prices. What was the quote? The floor price is just an unmet an unmet ask or something like that. So
Yeah. I mean, if you made money, take your profit, man. Otherwise, you're just an Excel millionaire. It's all on paper. Like, yeah, I'm so rich, but like, if you have nothing to show for it, you got nothing. I still have AG tokens from Agave. Okay, so I mean, put that into perspective.
Hey,
I got those IOUs.
Agave is gonna break $100.
Yeah. So we lost focus of what it was like for the NFB's project. Like, I went ENS and I went IPFS. There is a decentralized, non-immutable website on there. That's the kind of stuff that you should be onboarding people with. I think like buy an ENS. So now, okay, I can have. I mean, Billy.eth is gone. Some guy bought it for like 20 years. Big deal. Like, it's too expensive for me to buy it off of him now. But like now, if I had like buy twells.eth, right? Then you can get payments there. I was like, all right, now from now on, anybody that wants to pay you can pay you at twells.eth. Like, that's simple instead of 0x555.
Yeah.
Like, that one thing can stay with you forever. And it has no negative downside. Like, it's just something cool that you can use. Now you can host a website with that name, and you can do whatever you want on IPFS. So like, no government can shut you down. Like, it's immutable. So I mean, that's what DXDAO does. Like, it's one of those things they keep pushing for that people don't appreciate. And I didn't really appreciate it until like these last 2 weeks of like, nobody really cares. Like, people use Solana. I was like, okay, well, Solana's great. It's cheaper, cool. It's a new up and coming chain. But validators are so expensive, it really excludes a lot of people that can't afford it. You're talking thousands of dollars to run a validator when I can spend a couple $100 and run a node for Ethereum. Like, it's accessible to everybody, where the emphasis is truly in decentralization. It's hard to shut down. If they call the CEO of Solana and say, hey, shut it down, he's got to shut it down, and like, you just got screwed.
Yeah, well, and it will happen, and I think that it's only a matter of time. We were talking about this the other day for Gardens and the multi-sigless, sort of governance front end. I mean, these sorts of things, I think now are still on the fringes, although DAO tooling in particular is something that I think is getting more interest. But yeah, as you're saying, I think there are these specific groups that are and have been using these technologies for their, I don't even say like intended use case. They're finding ways to really apply them in interesting ways. And DXDAO is a great example, and all of their apps use ENS for their web domains, and I think that that tells you a certain level of sincerity, right? So they've been doing that for years.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that goes underappreciated, really, until like you bring it up. But I didn't really know about it until actually the trivia. I was like, oh shoot, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so that's when I went out and got an ENS, and then made it more decentralized, and went towards that direction, because I feel like that's what the whole essence of this whole space is. People are getting excited about the metaverse and everything, but I mean, when I look at all the metaverse projects, I was like, all I see is Minecraft, man. People are getting excited for Minecraft. Like you hit this like Squarespace, and like I get that it's tradable NFTs, but no one's really trading off that world anyway, other than just prospective buying of lands and stuff, and like getting airdropped, like a 3D item. I was like, I guess that's kind of cool, and I guess you could take it with you, but none of it looks good to me, honestly. I don't know if it's me being spectacle, but like it just doesn't look cool to me, honestly.
Yeah, man, the NFT land stuff is interesting. It's sort of, to me, it's like it's one of the biggest gambles because it is not finite in any way, shape, or form relative to like real land. And so you're really just gambling on what is going to be the Google of the metaverse. And I hate to say that, but in some ways it's like, right? I mean, because the only way it becomes valuable is if it's really the winning project that attracts, mass onboards people and then they control scarcity and you are in early, right? But otherwise it's just digital land. So like it is infinitely expandable, right? Hypothetically, unless it's, like I said, a specific project, it seems.
Yeah, it's a tough one to say. Like it's I keep trying to really like make sense of it, but I think the retention count of a lot of these places is pretty low. I mean, there's a lot of big investments to certain things, but it's just I just don't see it as being it right now. Like unfortunately, like I'm trying to like justify it. Like I should get into this, I should, but that like it bores me.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was excited about a lot of the NFT stuff actually earlier on, and like late 2020 before ETH gas fees got crazy. I was even minting on ETH mainnet, but then it just got nuts, and it got nuts. I mean, what was it?
Yeah.
Recently gas prices have been down much lower than they have been in a very long time.
Yeah. Gas is more. I've done a couple things on the mainnet. Like actually, like after the hack on Gnosis chain, I bridged back to Ethereum. I'm like, I can't do anything here really. Like nothing feels safe right now. Until
Mm.
the so I had to go back and make some moves on Ethereum chain and do that. So it was reasonable, but still, you get spoiled by having like a 0.001 transaction fee. So that's kind of sucked. But it is what it is. But it's just like people are getting excited and speculative on stuff that is like Nokia cell phone snake. Like it's not impressive to me.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I hear that.
But there's a lot of cool projects. I mean, again, like Superfluid is probably like one of my craziest, like the craziest thing I'm craziest about. Like that kind of stuff can change the world. It's like we're pushing to something that is very unique, and I'm pretty sure like there's other ones. There's like Drip Network and a couple other ones that kind of do like fluid streaming. But it's just the thought of it, of being able to like break away from the classic 2 week. You got a job, you have a salary, you have to wait 2 weeks for a job completed. It's like, well, that's kind of like really old. That's the old accounting system. Like there's a new way to do it now. You can get paid for the second. And so instead of having to wait the 2 weeks, your 2 weeks is coming to you at a stream at a constant rate. So if you need half your pay a week early, it's right there for you to claim. That kind of stuff is what I think is going to change the world. Like these kind of innovative type of things. That's what's going to be like, oh, that's the cool new way of doing things versus, I hold this NFT and I guess I get access, but it's kind of like an old way to do things. Like we're looking for something new, like changing the game. And those kind of projects like that. Alchemics, self-repaying loan, you got to borrow, you could deposit your money, borrow, cash out, buy a car, and it repays itself over time depending on the rate. Like it's a no liquidation type of thing. Like those kind of things like really seem cool to me. Like when I talk to people about that in the space, they're like, wow, that is cool versus the norm of like back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think that even now, and particularly since, well, this is a new year, but even maybe back before that, I feel like there is this, last year the NFTs were this huge hype, and that's sort of continued into the last few months, or maybe, even when there's sort of been a more bear marketish over the last number of months before the recent change here, or the pump at least in the short term, um, where I feel like there's this residual strong interest in NFTs and this feeling that people can still sort of, experience like huge gains in that space. But in the meantime, I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff that people are building that has this real utility. And I do think that the streaming cash flow services or something that it's just one example of how it's a serious value add over existing compensation structures, both on the administrating side and on the user and like the recipient. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool foundational infrastructure that's being built, that is getting less attention, but is actually going to create the most traction for like serious users.
Yeah, I think like I consider Superflow like a public good in a sense because there's no token, there's no real money to be
Mm.
made. It's just a service. Like their goal is to onboard devs to create on top of that platform. Like they have a Ricochet in on Polygon. That's where I invest in my ETH. Like I turn my USDC to ETH per the second, so I dollar cost average by the second over time. So I just whenever I do some DeFi stuff, I just convert it to use DSC and I wrap it and I just keep the flow going and then I unwrap my ETH and then I just whatever I get I get. But I'm always playing the dollar cost average game over time, and it's simple. So now I don't have to worry about it weekly or whenever you need to do it. It's just constantly going per second. So that's pretty cool. Like that's game changing for me. So now I don't have to sit there and like do swaps on the weekend or whatever. It's just like, okay, am I running low on the tap? Let me just refill the tap and keep it going. And I think that's very innovative. Like, okay, this is something that could change the world.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's as far as just topping up. I mean, that's the same way I think about for in just running the TV project, for example, with contributors, right? Rather than having to cut checks to individual or send even just in crypto, sending out crypto to individual wallet addresses, you just top up the smart contract that's streaming to everybody who's contributing. And I just think about like that. Okay, so that's a time saver at like a small project level, and for teams, I mean, there's just this huge time saver that compound at scale. So it's both new, interesting, but it has like these very specific, tangible, time saving benefits. It seems like adoption is going to gravitate towards those types of technologies.
I hope so, but really, public goods aren't cool. Regen isn't cool. It's just like those are the uncool things that people try to make cool, I guess. But it just doesn't. I can't see
Yeah.
it. Somebody has to come in and make it cool somehow. I don't know how you do that. It's one of those things. Like I know the regen people are really trying, but I'm like, eh.
Yeah, man, it'll be interesting to see. I haven't have you, I gotta sort of pick up Green Pilled at some point, um, and just see what it's all about. I'm curious to know. Awaki's got some interesting ideas, but I don't really know what the premise is and like how compelling it is yet. I haven't read much.
Take drugs, T Wells, while you do grammatic better.
You told me to prioritize.
I mean, like the whole region thing is like I get where they're trying to go, but it's like trying to make math cool. The people that are really into it are going to be into it, and they'll be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you're trying to reach the 20-year-old guy that's not really worried about trying to flip, an NFT or something, it's just not going to work. So I mean, you got to learn to read your demographic. Like if I'm like some hippie dude that picks up trash at the beach on the weekends, then Green Pill is going to be the big book for me. I'm going to pick it up and like, yeah, this is awesome. This is what I believe. But the guy that works a 9-to-5 job that hates it and wants to like change his life and hoping to gamble $200 to make 2,000, Green Pill is not going to be the book for him. It's like, well, how do you get to this guy? Because there's more of those guys than people cleaning up at the beach. It's like, how do you reach those guys? That's the question.
Right, and attempt to save in a sense from hostile forces. So to
Yeah,
speak. It's
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, man, Regen needs to do some rebranding in a sense. Like, I guess the Degen versus Regen stuff. I was like, all right, that's kind of a clever joke, but I'm like, what does Regen really mean? Like, what's the one liner? Like, how's it going to make me rich? That's the question. It's like, well, I guess I could do good, but then, I'm not in a place where I feel like I can be very charitable in a sense. A lot of people here in the space coming into Web3 don't really have a lot of extra income to give away. They're trying to like make their ends meet. So what makes more sense for someone like that's trying to make $100 and then give away 50? That makes sense. That's the trick. It's like people are barely making ends meet. So now you're asking me to give away stuff. It's like, so how does that work?
Yeah, and I feel like to a certain extent, um, the if you have people who are on the other side who are like ETH OGs that have that are sort of made in a sense financially, and they want to give back, then I think that sort of the regenerative economies are an interesting way and potentially attractive way for them to do that. But I hear what you're saying in terms of if you're somebody who's been in a while and can afford to think about and work on those sorts of things because you're not sort of in the position of trying to make ends meet or trying to use crypto as a way to make it, so to speak, then your priorities are different, right? And they may not be aligned with the folks you're referring to. I hear them, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I mean, basically, you're doing a gala of fundraisers of rich people. It's like, hey, please donate to this project. In a sense, it's kind of like real life again, where people are just pulling in people to donate your millions over this way instead of as a tax deduction or something. But these aren't tax deductible, so it's like, well, how does it work?
yeah, that was yeah, exactly. It's sort of if it does reach that point, and that'll be interesting if it were to. That would sort of change the game in some big ways, right? But in the meantime, without that sort of tax write-off, there are questions, and it's that's the biggest challenge if you're speaking with people from say the no coiner space and trying to get them jazzed about Gitcoin or Giveth or these sorts of projects, which personally I love, but it's without the tax write-off, it's definitely something. It's a harder sell for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if you're not guaranteeing income, it's like, well, how does it work? So this is like an uphill battle for it's like again, I'll just drop an NFT project and hope I sell. If I mint half, I'll make more than a Gitcoin grant.
Yeah, 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 and it's the matching on Gitcoin is pretty awesome. I mean, I got to say, but it definitely
Oh yeah.
is a process. I think of being in the rounds set for for a certain period of time until you get that traction for sure. Because people definitely look at the history, right? So before they give, they want to see how much you've raised in the past. And so I think, yeah, if there's any people out there interested in doing the Gitcoin round for public goods, it's definitely an awesome idea. It's definitely an awesome opportunity, but you're not going to like all of a sudden do a round and then walk away with enough for a long runway for your projects. It's a process just like anything else, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, Gitcoin's pretty cool. Like it works for a small amount of people that really support your project versus like one big whale. I mean, like putting in $1 each, like from 100 different people, gets you way more than one person dropping $100. So like
Right.
that's kind of cool. Yeah. So definitely, it's just like it's public goods needs another word. Like it's such a generic word that I couldn't even explain. It's like, well, it's a tool that people can use publicly. Like, well, it doesn't mean shit to anybody. It's like, all right, you want to save the environment? This is how you do it. You need like one good one-liners to explain to like the average Joe. And I feel there's a lot of lack of communication. And then the biggest part of the communication is like, well, if I do this, what do I get out of it? Versus helping improve the world in a sense, which is a good priority, but sometimes that's not enough for people.
Yeah, I get that, man. Well, the messaging is something obviously that emerges over time, and I think that I'm fascinated by some of the analogies to sort of this space to I don't know, like the early 2000s or so. I don't know, or like maybe the late 90s in terms of the transition between the sort of serious bubble around the internet to the winnowing, and then like the emergence of like real accrual of value to the application layer. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see like the messaging, I guess, is a part of that, would be a part of that breakthrough, is sort of finding the right words, as you're saying, to describe the most important and like sustainable aspects of crypto.
Well, I think it would be probably like the last, I would say the last kind of pure essence of Web3 because there really isn't a money making scheme behind it. So all the marketers haven't like attacked it yet because they're going more for the NFT and DeFi world. So it's like I would say the last chance of Web3 decentralization in a sense.
Fair enough, man. That makes sense.
It's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one because like if people don't see a chance or marketers don't have a way to flip it to make money, they're like, forget it.
Money can be made elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's easier. It's easier to deal with it, and I think more people in the public good space call out the bullshit way faster. Versus people like, hey, you can make money, I can make money too.
It's true. Yeah, man.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it from my Twitter Space experience of like just like I had to like tone it down a little bit, and like I couldn't take it for the last like couple of days. It was pretty bad, you know. But a lot of cool people out there too. I've gotten a couple of Twitter groups with more devs and more dev relations, that people are working on cool stuff. So like that has had a positive, but most of my spaces have been negative. I mean, there's been some good ones here and there, but it's just hard to keep up. It's like it's a full-time job just to stay on social media. Like you either productive or you're not. Unfortunately, this is like if you're on Twitter, I was like, oh, this guy doesn't do shit. You know, like this guy is always on Twitter. That's his job to do it. It's the guys that are silent, that are always busy doing stuff, is the ones that are like producing and things like that. And kind of unfortunate. Like the squeaky wheel gets the attention, but the one that's silent working along doesn't get any, unfortunately.
We try to generate a good balance here. Huh? And then,
Yeah, I'm trying to generate my balance of shit posting and coding. You know?
hey, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's all about that balance.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because you want to be like, it's like trying to keep up with the news. It's like there is so many
Yeah.
things going on at the same time. It's like impossible, and then you can't even condense it in an hour. You know, it's just way too much to follow in the space. You got to pick one or two things and then go with it. You know, and that's the tough part.
Yeah, I agree, man. Prioritizing, it's in some ways similar to Discord in the sense that in order to use it effectively, you have to be very effective at triage, I find, right? And like, yeah, you just gotta sort of know what you're interested in paying attention to and how it plugs in with your strengths, and then yeah, focus on those things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I noticed the biggest trend lately right now is dev relations. The like devs pulling other devs for projects or chains or anything like that seems to be the big trend. Like there's a lot of talent coming in the space, or a lot of talent trying to learn in the space. So there's been a lot of web 2 to web 3 transition projects. Unfortunately, even the last hackathon I was in, when I said I was going to stop doing them, I just got sucked back in. But it is what it is. But all of them were web 2 focused. I'm like, what the fuck, I can't win any of these prizes because they're all web front end based. So now like my focus is learning front end. But it seems like the job now for devs is to pull more devs to get more power, because we're like really really under like unavailable. Like everybody's kind of been pulled to where they need to be pulled, where they're offering $1 million for salary for contracts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though that's yeah, facility devs in particular in high demand, I imagine, huh? Or it seems like front end as well, but Solidity is the
Oh yeah, yeah, for
there's the
sure. If
crack.
you're like a senior, what considered to be a senior developer, I mean, you're going from 750 and up in essence per year on that, which is insane to me. I mean, I don't know if you're getting paid in tokens or if you're getting paid in stable coins, but 750 a year to be able to like produce in a sense at a high level and not get hacked, theoretically.
Theoretically, exactly. What sort of liability goes along with that? 750,000 a year.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Like again, like bridge attacks. We've had a bridge attack today. We had the bridge flaw attack a couple weeks ago. It seems to be like that's where the weak points are on all these bridges. Solana has suffered one, but they, a $600 million one too, but they covered that real quick because it was, VC funded and centralized. So they, just made a phone call, say, hey, we need you to cover 600 million. We're cool. These, I don't know how that's going to work out. It's kind of curious. Like, is this going to, our bridge is going to destroy the space? Is that what's going to be the collapse of this kind of era, or do we, patch and go? It's kind of the curious of where we're going to be in the space.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we have to hear your technical sort of download, as it were, on bridges and all that, because I obviously only have a layman's understanding. But um, yeah, I mean, it's crazy because you get into the position where you're like, it's a multi-chain world, and then this sort of infrastructure is less examined, I guess, in terms of its resilience until you have these exploits, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, a bridge is only as good and as secure as it is until someone gets creative to break it. Unfortunately, sometimes things go unseen and goes. But it's the platform that can't cover the costs is basically setting themselves to death. Solana, 600 million in ETH is huge. If they didn't cover that cost, nobody would be using Solana.
Yep.
And this is kind of curious about like Gnosis chains. Like there's been a lot of talk of Are they gonna cover it? Are they not? It looks good, but we don't know. If Gnosis Chain does not cover a good majority of the lost funds, who's gonna use Gnosis Chain? Like if Ronin like doesn't recover back this 600 million of all the players in NFT gaming, it's going to destroy the chain, and it's going to be like a big negative for NFT gaming. It's going to be a big blowback because everybody just lost all their money. So it's like they say DeFi is dangerous world, it's the Wild West, but it's like, all right, if you want your chain to succeed, you need to make sure your covers are safe. And like, I don't know if that's outside insurance or not, or however that goes, but if you don't recover those funds, nobody's going to use you again, and you're going to die.
Yeah, because there's particularly so many alternatives, right? I mean, there's and with do you, let me ask you this, man. Do you think that these bridges are in some ways just gonna like really push users back to L2s, or like what do you think?
It really depends on how everybody reacts. Like for Solana, they handled that situation so quick. Like it was literally the same day that ETH was returned.
Right.
Like it was done. Gnosis Chain is taking their time. They're I mean, I get both sides of the story. Like everybody can play the blame game, but I think of it like real estate. You bought a house, and there was like an underground tunnel built underneath the house 20 years ago, and there's a latch, but nobody's used it for 20 years, and no one has gone into it for 20 years, and then somebody breaks in your house using that tunnel. I mean, the tunnel should have been fixed previously, but it never was because nobody ever used it. So like, whose fault is it with the insurance? We don't know, but we do know the person living in the house just got fucked. So it's like, all right, well, does insurance cover it or not? And if they do, great. But if they don't, well, then no one's going to use that insurance company anymore.
Yeah, that is a fair analogy, man. And I think, I'll be happy. Do you think that this week will be a important week? I mean, like, when do you anticipate some greater clarity on the Gnosis Chain side of things?
I would have hoped for Gnosis to say, we're going to cover the funds, and I would have been okay with a vesting type of system to make sense of it. Okay. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I'm figuring Gnosis Chain is sitting at about $200 million in GNO funds and in general, just value in a sense. Okay, so if any of that was vested for some time and was generating income off bridges or anything like that, they could come up with $11 million in a few months just on fees or borrow lending or anything like that. So while $11 million is a big chunk, it is not impossible to cover the whole thing. Now they're trying to abstain themselves from, the whole, reason, oh, you guys should have had reentrancy in tax. They just bought the chain, they just overtook the chain from Stake. So they got all the problems, hey, it just happened. It sucks. But, that comes with that responsibility of like, you're just trying to build your brand up. And now, you're trying to onboard users. Who's going to want to develop on a chain that doesn't take care of you in a sense? So I would be hoping that GNO would be a little bit more open to saying, okay, we're going to cover this cost, but it's going to take some time versus we're going to discuss it. I believe that I think we'll cover some of our funds back, but that's going to lead a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths when Solana covered their full attack, when all these other chains with VC funds are covering their costs and fully. So I was like, well, why would I want to take a chance on a decentralized service when I can go with a VC fund and feel fully protected?
Right. Even if technologically there's some debate over superiority and relevance to decentralization, the backstop matters more to the average user. No, I agree, man.
So it's a tough call.
Yeah, and in the case of Agave, again, from the the technical side of things that you've explained, and some other people have as well, is it seems as though the bad precedent counter argument, it seems pretty weak at the technical level. In other words, it's pretty easy to create a bright line threshold where it's like, well, we will backstop projects that essentially, in this case, right, are subject to idiosyncrasies of the chain. You could sort of phrase it in a way that doesn't necessarily draw too much attention or accept responsibility in explicit terms, but more along the lines of saying, there is this common thread between 100 and agave that is not entirely the protocol's, responsibility or liability, as it were. And so just because you backstop these two doesn't mean you're going to be attracting scam projects, is my point, right? I think that there's some very important nuances that are unique to the agave hack that wouldn't necessarily be replicated, or goodwill wouldn't be taken advantage of so easily if you backstop it on the precedent side.
Yeah, for sure. I think Agave came up with a decent plan to cover it. I mean, they didn't want to say 100 funds from GNO. They were willing to take some of the hit too. So I mean, that just shows good precedent of what they're trying to do for their users. Like Luigi and the other teams. We are in the same community. It's not like they're coming to steal from us. I mean, they're trying to do the best they can to do it. I can't even imagine the stress levels they were feeling the first week for it, not knowing, what was going on and how they're going to cover this and all that. So it's like big respect to them. And DeFi is just the most unappreciated work that you can probably do, especially when people were complaining, "Where's my money? Where's my money?"
Right.
So I can only imagine the amount of VR they had to do to make that work and get that going. But what I really would have liked is GNO to come in and say, okay, don't stress out, guys. We're going to come up with a solution. That line from GNO, like from Gnosis Chain, would have solved a lot of problems and a lot of speculation of what could or could not happen.
You feel like that window is somewhat past already?
Yeah. Now they have to produce. They have to have a good plan. And for me, I'm understandable. Like, I didn't go all in. Unfortunately, I placed some ETH there temporarily, and I got burned on that. And I think that stings the most, especially as ETH is raising in price. I'm like, shit, that sucks. Yep. But it's one of those. I didn't go into hardcore into it, where it was like life destroying. It sucked, but it wasn't like that. But there's people that had their whole life savings in there, and like this literally fucked them hardcore. So I mean, obviously, emotion level, like you want to have some form of comfort, saying, "We got you," because right now you're like, damn, I just lost everything I worked for, this like my entire life in 1 hour, right. So having some form of comfort, like the chain's got you, you're an early supporter of this chain, like there's not much volume or like total value locked on Gnosis chain at the current moment. So it's kind of like, well, we're the early supporters, we're the builders, we're building this chain, we're building the community around this chain. Like, why would you burn your early supporters for, I would say, nothing? $11 million is not nothing to like gawk at, but it's not that much for the fees that they're making on chain.
Right. So relative to their earnings and relative, obviously, to the larger crypto space, it's relatively modest. Well, that's unfortunate to hear. I mean, I think obviously if you get any updates or hear anything, let us know. We can hop on Monday or whatnot and try to share the latest updates with the good peoples. But I haven't had a chance to watch the forum as much. I know you and Paul and Chewy and some others are paying close attention, though.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's going to be a positive outcome overall. Like, I mean, again, the Wild West, nobody owes anybody anything. But if they want to restore faith in the chain, they got to do something. Right. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they're going to do the Ronin hack. That was like the weirdest hack in the world. I'm not sure like the logic behind it, or if they're throwing people off, like having them look at centralized exchanges. But if that ETH is gone, it's like, well, how does Ronin recover it? Is there a VC fund? Do they call FTX and say, hey, can we have another 600 million? I'm very curious how that plays out, because it was really unfortunate that these guys didn't know it even happened for 6 days. So, I mean, how much faith is going to be on the chain when, there's nobody monitoring it? And now, they went from a 3.5 multi-sig to like I think a 7.9 multi-sig now. So it's like, well, that's your solution. Yeah, it's crazy. It was like a 51% attack on the nodes that they only have like, so many nodes, and then, be storing their keys, in plain text on their, and we don't know if it was all the same key running all 5 nodes or if it was different keys. There's still information that's out there, but it's like, it wasn't really a spectacular hack other than they just broke into the server and got the keys.
Fucking crazy, man.
So like people's faith in bridges, if these things don't get covered, it's like, well, like everybody's going to go back to Ethereum. Like, why would you trust a layer 2? That's the biggest question of, like, why would I risk going to the side chain, losing everything from a hack, and then I can't come back?
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is where I guess sort of some people would sort of draw that distinction, right, between an L1 with bridges and like a true L2. That it seems to me like this type of risk is minimized, if not eliminated, almost completely by if it was operating on Arbitrum or Optimism. Is that an accurate statement, Billy? Would you say? I mean, obviously you're sacrificing transaction speed and cost, but these bridging security risks are less, if not non-existent.
You still have to bridge into it in a sense. Like, I don't know the exact details, but there's still an IOU on the main chain. Like the way, just the layman's term of it is like, there's a contract sitting on Ethereum that just holds all the IOUs, and there's another contract on whatever other chain that says, oh, okay, this guy has an IOU for 5 ETH. Let me credit him 5 ETH on this side. And then let's say you make 5 ETH, and so you have 10 ETH, and then you try to bridge it back. It's like, if there's 10 ETH on the other side of the contract, you can cash out. If there's not, too bad.
Right. And this is where again I have no technical knowledge. I don't know if the connectivity, I guess, between say like Arbitrum or Optimism and ETH mainnet is somehow more secure or less risky than a bridge between say ETH mainnet and Solana. I have no. I mean, I'm just curious to know more about that, and maybe there's another time we can chat about that. But like essentially, in the world of bridges, is there a spectrum of risk, and like how would you minimize it, right?
Well, unfortunately, like a lot of these bridges are just kind of controlled by multi-sigs. So it is basically
Right.
on a scope of how many people around how many places in the world have that signature. And like Polygon is like, I think, on a 5/8 signature count. I mean, I'm pretty sure they have some crazy security, and they just hired like that super crazy dev guy, Mudgit Gupta. That's pretty much like the Twitter master of, like, he's like always one of the first people to like tell you how it hacked and how things got hacked. So he's like a consultant for Polygon directly, but basically everybody's on a multi-sig. So like, I'm pretty sure one day there's going to be a movie somewhere where there's like a 11's, like, what is it, 11's 42, or what is that movie where they do this big Vegas heist? I
Oh
forget the
yeah,
name.
Ocean's 11. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ocean's 11. There's gonna be like Ocean 3 with like three nerds all over the internet that multi. I can't even speak anymore. But basically, they hack everybody's keys and steal all the funds on a L2, and they take off. That's gonna be a movie one day because it's limited by the key itself. And that's the crazy part. There's literally billions of dollars being secured by like four guys' keys, and if they all live in a country where they can subpoena that or like torture it out of them, that's the risk we hold on having it on L2.
Right. Well, in case you didn't
But
know, folks, this is late night, and we pull out all the stops here. Fun and all. Not really. Just truth.
I mean, yeah, I just speak the truth, man, and like
That's right.
that's what it is. That's the risk you have. So it's like, all right, again, what makes you sleep okay? Like, are you willing to lose $500 on a side chain? Are you willing to lose 5,000 on a side? Like, everybody's saying they're willing to lose it until they have the risk of losing it, and then they get scared and pull out. But the guy was like, well, people were like, oh yeah, it's DeFi, but then they realized I didn't want to risk that much.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think it's better that people are informed, man, about those risks because even when it comes to things like bridges, I think this is something that only until a few months ago that I even became fully aware of sort of the unique risks that they pose. And so yeah, it's but at the same time, then you're like, well, this is something obviously that is still a significant problem, and there's a lot of really smart people working on it. So you always have the possibility for significant breakthroughs on this stuff, and we'll have to see what comes about, in the next couple of years here. But it seems as though there has to be some major breakthrough on the bridge sides to sort of increase security, so that you can move forward without these, like you said, the VC backstops.
Yeah, I'll be honest, bridges scare the shit out of me, and like, again, they're only as good as like as someone like does the contract for it. So we don't know. I mean, Polygon's patched it like 7 times, and they've even paid $1 million bounty. Who knows who's watching what bridge at what time? Like, and then those are the white hats. Is like, what are the black hats that are ahead of the game? That it's like, oh, can I make $1 million or can I make $600 million?
Right, and that was always I think the thing that caused a lot of people to scratch their heads on agave. I mean, it was like I don't know. When you see these hawks for 600 million, it makes 11s. I mean, again, I know you don't want to minimize, but it makes 11 seem like a less likely target, I guess.
It's chump change, it is. I figure the hacker probably bought into agave too because he figured the tokens were going to rise, so he probably bought some back too.
God.
He's probably the one that made a pump.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It's the hacker, it's like smart move. He's also an investor too.
Your oceans have won.
Yeah, I mean, just as I don't feel like I'm super good at all. Like I'm still struggling to learn and pull stuff off. And then there's guys that are ahead of me, and then there's guys that are gigabrains that are like just they got Doritos in their belly button and they live on their computer all day that are hacking this shit like crazy. Who knows? They got anime playing in the fucking like anime playing in like two screens and shit. It's like, I'm about to get these motherfuckers right now.
You paint a good picture there, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this is how I imagine people that do crazy hacks. It's just like, man, they're antisocial and just fucking shit up, or it's probably the president of fucking Nigeria and shit. He's like the prince guy finally got all his funding and now he's fucking shit up.
Finally.
Like now I can pay you guys. Finally, I hacked this motherfuckers. Yeah, but yeah, it's just the name of the space. It keeps growing. The only thing you can do is just keep pushing towards what you want to build, and that's my goal. Just keep learning. There's so many people to learn from and expanding my horizons and stuff like that. I've been kind of looking at Solana as the chain, learning Rust and doing that, but like it's like I don't want to break away from my focus. There's still a lot of cool things on chain. There's the streaming and NFTs. I think have a really good source. I've been messing around with the streaming NFTs that we did for Bright ID. We just deployed those prizes out, so that was kind of fun to be able to stream Bright on an NFT that they got. So I'm going to see how that plays out. If I get like a bunch of DMs saying, how do I collect my money? Even though I made a video just explaining them the details, but we'll see how that plays out. I definitely want to do that one for the NFVs too. That's kind of in the works. I was trying to get all the artists together, but when it's decentralized, shit takes like forever. So I was like, all right, you guys do some art. We're going to hold a raffle, and after so many mints, we're going to drop like this commemorative we got hacked from Agave NFT, and stream maybe some Agave token or something like that, just to have like all the NFT users have. So we got trying to build something fun, make light of the situation. Shit happens, and you just move on from the space. So it's just keep building, keep going. Don't be scared. Just don't be crazy with what you play with. That's what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, man. And I think that's a good words of wisdom there. And we're obviously stoked here to be continuing to build out the One Hive TV project, and appreciate everybody who joined us here in the Discord this evening. If you're on YouTube and Twitch, make sure to follow, subscribe, and we got lots of cool content coming throughout the week. Get here bi-weekly with Billy here and chat up the truth of the blockchain here, as it were. We will have, there's another show coming live tomorrow. Dash is here with us right now, actually. If you're interested in NFTs and gaming, head on over to that stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. And maybe next time, Billy, when you join us, we can do like a walkthrough of some of these projects you've been working on with the Soulbound NFTs with Bright ID and all that, because I know you're working on some cool, innovative stuff, like real innovative stuff with NFTs.
Yeah, for sure. And then I can rug you guys too right after. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we can raise the exit liquidity.
Yeah, there you go. No, hell no. You see those guys get 20 years for that rug with the roadmap. Oh all of a sudden, all these influencers started coming back. It was like, oh yeah, our roadmap is completing now.
Our roadmap is completing now. That was like, yeah, I mean, at a higher level, there was that great chat. I was like, and Jimmy Fallon and other people, you just love to see them chatting up their Bored Apes, and then I don't know if the SEC actually reached out to them, but there were these questions that they were just like prepping exit liquidity. So
yeah, no kidding.
They'll do it too. They're not gonna answer you, but they'll prep you to sell.
Yeah, for sure. I don't trust anybody, especially famous people. Like, you already got your money. Why you want some of mine?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they want somebody to be able to buy it and say, I have the ape that Jimmy Fallon once owned, and then fractionalize it or some craziness. But yeah.
But yeah, definitely. It'd be cool to do some projects, and then if people want me to talk shit about a certain project or whatever, let me know. I'll dig into it.
There you go. Well, that's a good place to leave it then, folks. If you're on the Discord server with us here, feel free to drop any questions or ideas there on One Hype TV. Any projects you want us to check into, and we'll be back. Let's see here next week here. Let's see here. So I see so David dropped a message there just to conclude here. Let's see here. Yes, it is the chat there, and we'll be back bi-weekly, right, Billy? 2 Tuesdays from
Yeah.
now we'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, let me see. Am I in ETH only? A good chunk of it, I am. I'll be straight up. I'm on Gnosis, and I'm on Polygon, and as crazy as it sounds, I'm on Binance Chain, and majority is on ETH. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. It's that GNO pump was nice in the last couple of days too, though. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not trying to give up too much alpha, but Sushi's got a cool pool percentage if you want to check it out. But shh, keep it on the
There you
low.
go.
This is
All
for
right.
one high
All right. All right. You
only,
got the alpha.
okay?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Over 60% return, okay, fam?
There you go. All
Don't
you
steal
do
my
to-
APR. Don't
That's
steal my
it.
APR.
Right on, Billy. Well, thank you for joining us, man. And I always look forward to chatting. And
Yeah, man, I might hit Twitter Spaces again, or I might go somewhere new. I don't know, somewhere to experiment and do something fun and stupid. I got too crazy in the coder world, and like it'll drain you, man. You get sucked into it pretty hard. So I've been just trying to have fun. I'll probably drop by LA NFT tomorrow to maybe meet some people in real life. So I'll probably throw it on my Twitter or something and just bullshit and all that. But we'll think of some subjects for the 2 weeks from now. Drop some projects or drop some ideas, and I'll talk shit about it.
sounds good, man. We'll have to have a good time at the convention there. And yeah, we'll look forward, folks. If you're on Twitch or Twitter, you can follow Billy. His Twitter's up on screen. And we'll talk to you soon, my man. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you. You too, guys. You too. See you guys later.
Take care, everybody. GM.